Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFirio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you so much for being here, and I would encourage you to subscribe to the show wherever you get podcasts on your podcast player, Spotify, YouTube, and share the episodes wherever you can, whenever you can on social media, and tell people about the show. It really helps. Would love for every coffee shop in the world to know about Keys to the Shop, because I think we have a lot of content from a lot of professionals and just deep dives and topics that will help people run great cafes. And we need more great cafes in the world, right? So thank you, all of you who have rated, reviewed, shared. Thank you. And Keys to the Shop, by the way, it's a podcast. That is the way we started. But quickly, we took on consulting and coaching. And I've been working one-on-one with owners and operators, management teams for the better part of a decade now. And, this has been one of the highlights of my career. This is now my 26th year in coffee. And I am really thrilled to get to work with cafe owners around the world to coach and help them and their teams produce great cafes, to either start the right way or to take what you currently have, make it even better. If you're looking for a consultant or a coach and just want to run some ideas by maybe how we can work together, let's just have a conversation. You can find the link for a discovery call in the show notes. Go to the show notes for this episode, or just go to keystotheshop.com and look at the consulting page, and you'll see testimonials. Reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. That's what we'd like to do. Lots of good things come from good conversations. So reach out, and you can email Chris at Keys to the Shop as well. That would be awesome. So now we are going to talk a little bit about first the sponsors. I mean, we're sponsored by some great companies, starting with Arto Brick at arto.com, and then also the Pacific Barista Series. And we will talk about them later on in the episode. But I want to just jump into our topic today because it's a critical topic that we talk about a lot, but I'm not sure if we talk about it in a way that gives people tools to be able to really apply in their cafe. I love the idea of focusing in on three things in the world of coffee, and that is people, operations, and quality. Then we talk about people a lot. We want to be a people first place. We want to create people first systems. I want to be a people first leader. And the question, of course, you have to ask is, well, as opposed to what? And usually the what that we're trying to replace with people, people first versus, I don't know, like ease or efficiency or money or that kind of stuff. And the idea is there are a lot of things that could stand in the way of creating something that works for people if we haven't considered people first. That means everything kind of has to be there, including and starting with the people for which whatever it is we're creating is created. So it's not to say that you don't think about money or you don't think about efficiencies, but the question is, what is it all based on? What is the North Star? What is the foundation? Let's just throw out all sorts of analogies and stuff that makes sense for you here. We do want to be people first because other things and the busyness of our cafes get in the way. And so now we're going to talk about how you can actually take care of people in the cafe in a way that I think if you adopt and constantly look at, you may want to create a rhythm for how you assess your own performance in your ability to care for people on maybe a monthly basis. Maybe it's a quarterly basis. No matter what, though, you've got to have some kind of a plan that is built with intentionality and is designed to keep you focused just as much as you want people to dial in an espresso and keep things accurate and clean. The same way it applies to how we keep ourselves as leaders in the coffee shop. So we're going to talk about people today, and we're going to start with the person that really matters the most, you. Okay, so that sounds a little weird because you could say, well, the person that matters the most is the guest. Yes, in a certain context, you're right. However, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not taking care of your mindset towards other people, if that's not going to be good for anybody. So the first thing we have to make sure we understand is the same thing we preach about workflow and speed behind the bar. Maybe a little simplistic, maybe a little reductive, but the phrase that people use in restaurants and bars, etc., is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Slow to the degree that you can be smooth and eliminate mistakes means that you get to be consistently, I like the word quick. Quick doesn't have a lot of baggage to it. It doesn't have this, like, you're frenzied, you know, it makes it a little bit more professional speed. If we just want to go fast, 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 that looks, ugh, I don't want that. I want quick. I want attentive. I want all those things. But in order to do that, I have to go at a pace. I have to pace myself because it's not a sprint. It's more of a marathon. And if you see people in a race, and I have a very limited experience in cross country in high school, but I know for a fact there are those who really give all they've got right at the beginning. But those are the people that usually at the end of the race, they lag. Doesn't matter if it's something average length like a 5K or a 10K or beyond. A lot of times, if you don't pace yourself and you just focus on getting ahead of everybody else, what it does is it is a misappropriation of energy. So this is kind of, to start out, a call for you to understand, just like our friend Greg McEwen talks about in the episode we were talking about time management. I'm going to link to a couple of Greg's episodes that we've had on the show. He talked about essentialism, and he talked about efficiency, and he talked about just kind of not giving more than we actually have to give, but giving the appropriate amount. Give 80% of what you have to a task, because you have to have something left over to give other people. You can't just spend your energy on everything and then at the end of the day still have other tasks to do or people to care for, and you have no margin. So what we don't want is for you to take on too much, to set goals that are unrealistic because it makes you feel good and aspirational and heroic, entrepreneurial. You're grinding, you're hustling. Like, that image of who you are does not sustain who you actually are and what is actually needed of you. So you can pace yourself. Believe it or not, there is time. You don't have to say yes to everything. You can say no habitually. Actually, your default probably should just be no. And then if a yes comes in, you can say that's an absolute yes. And that's a lot more healthy than just, out of almost a fear that you're going to be missing out on something, saying yes to a lot of things. And then that yes can look like a menu that's way too large. It can look like a space that you said yes to that is way too big because you had all these ideas that you were going to, start producing events and start doing a commissary kitchen and start doing a, whatever. Oh, it's, I know it's 2,500 square feet and it's really my first store, but I think I can do it if we really try. Maybe some people can. Okay. I'm not going to say you can't, but it's a lot. And we don't even know what's going to be required of you truly, but now you're saddled with this load. And you need to be able to create margin for yourself, because then look at how you demonstrate time management and care for yourself is going to be how people perceive your values of what their time looks like. So you're going to end up propagating more burnout, more lack of margin in work. So build in care for yourself, build in margin so you're not going to burn out. And as you feel the ability to add more, without that little bit of a shaky, like, ooh, something's shuddering underneath the surface, right? But well, we're still standing. That's a warning sign. Don't go too much farther than that. In physical therapy, they talk about this. You don't ignore pain and you say, look, there's a certain point at which a little discomfort is necessary, but pain is not something you push into because you exacerbate the problem. And so let's not glorify pain. Let's not glorify burnout and propagate more burnout. And it starts with you. You are, as that in this circumstance, you are the most important person to focus on, because then you can focus on those important people. Does that make sense? Okay, so first thing, there's a little bit more of a caveat, but when you think about yourself in the coffee shop, you got to think about who you are, not as a person, but as a professional, as a person who wears the logo. It's you. You're the boss. You have authority. The authority warps the way people think about you. Initially, most people are skeptical of bosses. They have to prove their trustworthiness. It's just the way it is. You can't change it just by wanting it to change. You just have to accept it and always be the first mover, the initiator, the one to prove your case through actions. And it starts with understanding that humility and serving from the bottom up, not the top down, is the way to think about this. That's a good perspective to have. And I've always used the analogy here of my wedding ring, where I patted my son on the head many moons ago, and he was in pain because of it, because I didn't realize my ring was still on my hand. Of course it's on my hand, it's always on my hand, but to me it's just a part of my body. I took that ring and I hurt him with it unintentionally, of course. But to him, it just felt like pain. It didn't feel like affection, because I didn't consider the weight of the thing that I carry with me, that is always there, that, is just a part of me. Your authority is the same thing. If you're not aware of the added weight of your authority and the way that it kind of warps space-time around you as you walk into a coffee shop, then you're going to inadvertently cause more damage, because you're being negligent. You're neglecting to use your authority as a tool, and it's actually just being drugged behind you. It's not an asset anymore. When you're not using it intentionally, it's actually more of a liability. That means you become saddled with the title of liability. So embrace your authority, use it with humility as a tool to serve others. Your power is not your own. It is used for the benefit of others. So that means part of the way you do that is to have a charitable mindset and an others mindset, others focused. So if you are familiar with the reticular activating system in the brain, where you focus on a color or a shape or a face or a for sale sign on a front lawn when you're looking for houses, your brain, in the mechanisms of the subconscious, will constantly be looking for that, and you will notice it more often. I Spy is just the classic children's game that demonstrates how the reticular activating system works. You say something red, everyone looks for something red, and you never knew there was so much red around you until you actually focus on it. So if you're not focused on others, you can't actually recognize opportunities to serve others. And too many entrepreneurs and leaders ask for either predetermined templates to do that without having to notice themselves, or they want other people to give it to them as a request. So it's the onus they've put on others, but the onus is on us to notice others, to have an outward mindset and an others focused mindset. And that requires some intentionality and hands-on leadership. So hands-on is better than hands-off. Hands-off leadership is a cop-out, mostly. Hands-off is earned in small ways, in small parts. Like you have a manager, you don't want to step on their toes per se. The only reason that would work is because you have been hands-on with them to get them to a point of trusted, verifiable autonomy according to the values and standards of your cafe, with a trust-based relationship where everybody in you and that person trust that each other we're working together for one another's benefit. That's when hands off. You don't want to be constantly reasserting your authority and undermining your manager's authority. However, most people start from that position. They say, well, I'm going to empower my baristas to just make the right call. And if they just kind of magically intuit, and as if every barista is some kind of a mystical magic 8-ball, like they're just going to like come up with an answer in their head and it's going to be right. It doesn't work like that. You have to be the boss, and it's okay. You can be hands-on. You have to be decisive, and be clear and be there for people as that present, helpful for them resource, agent of clarity. And in that way, what you end up doing is you hold yourself accountable. That's a big issue with leadership, is that who's going to hold you accountable? We don't like the idea of being held accountable. In fact, a lot of people get into this business because they don't like having a boss. They're like, oh, good luck, by the way, because now everyone's your boss in so many ways. As Michael Gerber says in the E-Myth Revisited, he talks about how you exchanged your old boss for the worst boss, and that's yourself. So this is why this is an incredibly important first step, is to think about you. You are this first step into caring for people. And how you grow is how you grow the business. So if your business grows and you don't, then basically it's a misfit, and you're going to be blaming everybody but yourself for whatever kind of hemorrhaging of money and awkward, halting progress is made, turnover, lack of profitability. And a lot of it can be traced back to somewhat of a mismatch between people and the opportunities that they're presented. So you rise up to the occasion by growing up with the occasion. That's how this works. So that's a first step, is you to focus on when you want to focus on people. But then, of course, you have your team. You've got the baristas and those who you've hired to work with you to serve the customers. And so I want to talk about that right now. Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I wanted to talk about our sponsors today because they are awesome, and starting with Arto Brick. I love Arto because it is an artisan, truly an artisan, made in the USA in Los Angeles, run by Armin and his brother Vod, taken over from their father, Armin, who came over to the United States back in the 70s and started this company making tiles by hand. And today they are servicing so many different residential and commercial properties, especially, and also coffee shops, with basically, if you think about a design in an artistic expression that you want in your cafe, they can make this in tile. They can make these hard surfaces and stoneworks that just make your cafe stand out. So if you're looking for partners and your contractor is looking to work with people that really help you build the better cafe based on the unique feel, the literal feel of the cafe, and the image of this beautiful hand-painted, hand-designed tiled stonework, Arto is the place to go. So arto.com, better yet, go to Instagram at Arto Brick. Reach out and tell Armin that you heard about all of what they do at Keys to the Shop. Also, we're sponsored by the Barista Series from Pacific, the line of plant-based beverages that is basically created for the professional barista. It is with them in mind that Pacific has, for decades now, created this extensive lineup of plant-based beverages that stands up to the heat from steaming, creates great texture for latte art, and it basically keeps the whole balance of the flavor focused on coffee. So because of that, it has been the world's choice of plant-based beverage for so long. So you need to try it for yourself. Go to pacificfoodservice.com, try it and taste it. You'll see what I'm talking about. And again, if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages to serve your guests in your coffee shop, then look no further than the Pacific Barista Series. Now, we're going to talk about the baristas, your staff. And one of the first things that you have to do is make sure you're making a good decision that's not going to put them in a no-win situation. If you hire the wrong people, and when I say wrong people, I mean ill fit for the job at hand. You got to know what the job is. What's the role? What's the clarity of the job description and everything else going into this? What are your expectations? Are they reasonable expectations? Are they clearly laid out? Have you walked through what it looks like to do those things? And how are they being done? What are the values of behavior, the character traits and virtues of a professional in your environment? If you identify those things in detail, now you know who you are looking for. You know the genuine article when you see it. And I really can't stress this enough. When you hire, you have got to hire people who already possess those things and are actively pursuing and growing in them. That's the main thing you're looking for. You cannot just hire people based on a vague vibe check. You cannot hire people, you can, and people do. So don't get me wrong, you do what you want. That's kind of the problem, is because when we say, I want to do what you want isn't based on something specific enough to be helpful later on. So we end up with the wrong people working for us because they don't possess these things. And in worst cases, they actually are behaving in ways that are antithetical to this. And had we a little bit more detail in our mind about values and virtues and behaviors and jobs and what they require from people and what it looks like, then we're going to know what those people look like that represent those values. I hope that makes sense. Like, the standard for hiring has to be elevated in our industry, because right now I feel it's very, very low. And if you get good people, a lot of times you say, oh, I can't lose them because they're so good. That's how you know, if you find yourself really desperate to keep somebody versus all the other staff, that was pure luck. We lucked into that one. Whew. That, more than being scared to lose that person, you should be scared about how reckless the hiring process is in your coffee shop that led to this accidental good hire. That scares me more than just losing that person. So take this as encouragement to create a process where you can identify specific, actionable, what does it look like to have integrity? What does it look like to be a hard worker, a team player? Fill in the blank of what that looks like for you in very excruciating detail in your cafe. And then when people interview for the job, you can say, is this the kind of person I can see doing this job description that AI did not write? I did it, not AI. I take the A out, keep the I. You did it. Yeah, authentic intelligence maybe is a better way that substitute the meanings. But the point is that none of this works when you outsource your responsibility to put in the thought and intention and work. It can't work as well, because you're going to be basically creating a shinier version of running a cafe based on luck. Don't want that, because the luck runs out. That building of roles has to happen for your people, because they want to know how to win at work. What does it look like to win at work in your coffee shop? How does a barista know they're doing a good job? I ask managers, I ask baristas when I go to your coffee shop and I visit and do a cafe assessment. I like to talk to as many baristas and managers as possible to really get to know what's happening here. And one of the questions I ask is, how do you know you're doing a good job? And the tragic answer comes back oftentimes is, because others around me say I'm doing a good job. And that varies because lots of different baristas have different standards for what it looks like to do a good job. And they're not the ones, by the way, who determine your paycheck. Or they'll say, I don't know. I assume I'm doing a good job because I haven't heard otherwise. So we can create expectations, we can create clarity, but if we're not creating feedback and great, systems of communication where people are reassured, and we do need reassurance, because the emotional labor, it is a real thing. I know everyone likes to kind of crap on this idea of emotional labor, but working in hospitality is emotional labor as much as it is physical and mental and all that stuff. It's a whole person game if you want to do it well. So it kind of shines a light on just how great baristas actually are. They're giving so much. We at least owe them the ability to identify where they are in the company, because it's easy to figure, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm not doing very good. But if a manager comes in and says, no, look, here's what it means to do a great job here. Remember, we talked about this, 1, 2, and 3. Here's these subcategories. I see you doing, here's some specific things that you're doing. Really amazing work. High five, done. That's a very specific feedback that happens where you can say, here you are. Don't worry. It's okay. And we all need that. Owners need that. Managers need that, because the work shifts our our location. Like where am I right now? I got to figure out, okay, pause. Let's figure out what's going on. So what you have to do is often schedule both coaching to help people gain, skills and improve and grow. But you also have to schedule affirmation. You have to schedule in your day, because it's busy being a leader in a coffee shop, time to actually purposefully talk to people about the things that they're doing very well, help them know they're doing a great job. So you're resourcing them with knowledge and training and time and presence. It's very important that you do this to take care of your staff. And of course, we don't need to really talk about this on this episode, but generosity goes a long way, and in keeping your promises is a huge part of generosity as well. So you can be generous as a way to make up for not being dependable. A lot of people do this. They say, well, you know what? Here's a big bonus. Sorry, we're late with your paychecks. Or I didn't give you the raise that you wanted, but here's something to make up for it. That's not really, what I promised, but I just want you to know that I'm sorry. So the best apology is changed behavior. That's what they say. So if you're going to do anything, be dependable, keep your promises. Starts with, consistent scheduling, consistent payment, raises when you said raises were going to happen, tracking progress, making, having good communication. Don't let people do a bad job for any number of weeks, even without letting them know that there's something that needs to be fixed, because otherwise they're going to never know why they didn't get promotions. And there's lots of people who needed to be coached and needed to be communicated with, but they just get sidelined, backburnered, managed out by scared managers and scared owners, and it creates a lot of toxicity. So there's some thoughts for you here on creating some great ways to take care of your team. And then, of course, you have the customer. They are the next one, of course, who gets the benefit, if you've done all this, to actually be cared for by people who are cared for. So part of this is it's all by design, right? Because your coffee shop has to be designed to meet and exceed their expectations. It starts with care for yourself and care for your people and care for the space and everything else. Your marketing often is very effective to bring people in, but your operations are very ineffective to meet and exceed expectations. So we need to fix that. So actually, I'd rather you underpromise in your marketing and over-deliver in your experience. That's the best marketing. Even if you didn't believe this or not, I don't know if you'll believe this. If you did an amazing job in your coffee shop, like really, truly, maybe you are like the best at hospitality and coffee and care and all that stuff, you don't need an Instagram account. You almost don't need to market, because word of mouth is still a very real thing. Now, you probably should. You probably have these things, but we overblow the importance of this stuff because we underestimate the power of word of mouth and just how much energy people have to give, more than they are for your business and its success, if you just deliver a really good experience for them every single time. It's basic for sure. It's simple. Yeah. It's hard to do, but those who engage in that are the ones I find who actually don't feel like they need to constantly be convincing people and twisting their arm, digitally, to bring them into their cafes. You don't have to twist their arm, they'll want to. So one other, how you welcome people is a huge thing for coffee service. Welcome, acknowledge, and include. Our friend Philip Paul Turner from years past, former manager at Sunnergoss Coffee, and one of the people that I count as a prime example of what I want to see more of in welcoming people to a coffee shop. He always had that 3-step approach: welcome them, acknowledge them, include them. And I'm going to add celebrate them, because customers, they see your menu, they see the space, they want to consume what's on the menu, they want to use the space. But what we have is a culture right now that is against customers doing what we kind of told them we want them to do. Oh, you ordered that. I don't like that, or we're not going to give as much attention to that, like dialing in decaf. We offer it, and therefore we should be focused on it. Doesn't matter what it is, it's on the menu. And if you work for a coffee shop, you had access to that menu to know that you were signing up to make that menu. So don't go pretending that, oh, it's, a really stupid menu and all this other stuff. Honestly, if you feel like you need to fight customers on menu orders and denigrate them for their menu orders, then it is very revealing and very immature, because you're the one who wanted to work at this coffee shop, which means you wanted to make that menu. And now we can't trust. What do you want? Do you want to work here? Do you want to make this menu? Well, then let your yes be yes and your no be no. Don't work there or work there. Crap or get off the pot. That's the issue we have for a lot of culture right now. Customers feel it. They thought they were going to walk into a coffee shop with couches and chairs and benches and in a menu, and they were going to sit and drink coffee and have a good time. Oh, they didn't know that there's a wrong way to sit, or there's a wrong way to order, or there is a side eye that they're going to get if they stay too long. Maybe they stay for a couple of hours, and even the owner would get a little bit just like, why are you here for 2 hours? Taking up space. It's like, this is coffee shop culture. We have to understand coffee shop culture has always been pretty much almost universally a place to come and sit and have coffee. And we create all of these extraneous rules to suit our egos. And so we need to call that into question and say, let's celebrate the people rather than reinforce our preferences. The reinforcing of your preferences starts with the development of the business to begin with. It starts with how you design the menu and the space. After that, it's now up to the customer to use that space. I'm sure, there's rules. Don't put bare feet up on tables and blah, blah, blah. There's lots of that. Okay? I'm not saying that it's pandemonium. I'm not saying it's chaos. However, I think we go too far. Okay, so customers love your dark roast, and we try to make them our project to say, well, you shouldn't like dark roast, so we're going to try to get you to get this light roast single origin Kenya, and they just don't like it, but they feel like pressured and all this weird stuff. We add too much weirdness to the transaction, too much weirdness to the experience. It's not that hard. Just celebrate people. They're ordering from the menu. They like your coffee shop. They feel comfortable. Don't ruin it by turning it into something that it doesn't need to be. And now, the last thing I guess I'll say here is that when you study what it looks like to serve your people well, you don't need to read a study on people from the NCA or the SCA or anywhere else necessarily to learn something about a generation and blah, blah, blah. Your community because there are faces attached to those numbers. There are emotions and faces attached to those numbers. And you can talk to them and have a conversation. And if you're not, but you are paying for a downloaded study on market trends in the coffee industry, I hope that's just for novelty and not as a replacement for what you should be doing, which is studying people more than coffee, which is figuring out, are you serving people in your town, or are you serving people based on national sales reports and that kind of stuff? So with your customers, you need to be able to focus on what benefits them using your coffee shop, your menu, your style of service and hospitality that you set up and developed. You took care to take care of yourself, your staff, and now you can take care of your customers. And ultimately, that's a huge difference between a coffee shop that creates a certain kind of a animation and life-giving property that you just know there's something about this place. That's the coveted feeling. Like there's something magical about this place. That magic was cultivated. And these are the steps that you can take and apply to your cafe to make that magic work for you too. So that's all I have for you today. And I hope it was helpful. You can let me know by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. And don't forget, we do consulting and coaching. I work one-on-one with you and your team on all sorts of different projects related to making your coffee shop better. So email chris@keystotheshop.com. And I would love for you to have a conversation with me. So that's it. Thanks, everybody. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.